What's up, guys? Welcome back to We Need to Talk episode number 13, Food Pyramid, the greatest lie ever told. And this is mostly going back, the old food pyramid. The new food pyramid still hasn't been tried out yet. But let's get straight to it. The first one we're going to be going through is the website called We Are Chief, the corrupt history of the food pyramid. And the second one we're going to be going through is Green Choice Now, food pyramid, and how money influences USDA dietary guidelines. So a lot of this is going to be from Harvard, a lot of this is going to be straight from the government, a lot of this is going to be from multiple governments around the whole world. So this video is going to be popping a lot of information for you guys. That first one we're going to go is Chief, the corrupt history of the food pyramid. I'm going to put it up on screen for you guys. You'll see the old food pyramid. I remember seeing this on our walls and in the cafeterias or in the classrooms back in grade school. The origin and design, the food guide pyramid, which was introduced in the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, in 1992. The original food guide pyramid was designed with 6 blocks, each representing a food group: grains and carbohydrates, 6 to 11 servings of bread, rice, and pasta, etc. This is per day, by the way. Fruits, 2 to 4 servings per day. Vegetables, 3 to 5 servings per day. Dairy, 2 to 3 servings per day. Protein, including meat, eggs, nuts, and beans, 2 to 3 servings per day. And last, fats at the peak of the pyramid. See, you see how so the fats, dairy, and meat products, everything like that, protein basically, is all the worst. They rate it as having it the least in your dietary. And now it's kind of like flipped upside down. Now protein, everyone's in protein deficiency. Everyone is deficient in vitamin D and vitamin C. Everyone's deficient in all that kinds of stuff. And now, we kind of see now that we're leading us the wrong damn path for like decades. So I guess the new Harvard one, which we're gonna get to, is a little bit better, but you'll see in a bit. First, I gotta talk to you guys about the origin. So this is more of the origin here. Ancel Keys, who was almost singularly responsible for growing that seed of poor research into the twisted mess of the food pyramid that we have. He was dogmatic, belligerent, and undeniably political, 3 qualities that he wielded bloody-mindedly to steamroll any dissenting views, and by that I really mean any reasonable opposition to his outlandish claims. So this guy was just knocking out everybody that would come up to him and argue with him about his research or about his conclusions and resolutions to his stuff. He repeatedly broke it with the civil norms of academia to bully dissenting colleagues and almost brutally silencing the opposition. And in the context of what was perceived to be growing public emergency, being that of the unexplained cause of heart disease, health officials were receptive to his message. You see, 2 years before Eisenhower's heart attack, Ancel Keys had published a widely criticized graph plotting the average fat consumptions in various countries against heart disease. So I'm assuming that he did his own research based because people were looking for a cure, or not a cure, but a way to curb the heart disease deaths that were climbing inexplicably. However, he was able to establish significant influence within the American Heart Association. And by 1958, the American Heart Association, with Keys now at the helm, launched the 7 countries study. Not surprisingly, he anchored the results with 3 countries from his 6 countries graph, perhaps foretelling the findings before it was eventually published in 1978. Wow, 20 years before he published it. That's crazy. And on the back of this political maneuvering, Ancel Keys' star continued to rise in 1961. He fronted the cover of the Time magazine, wow, in which his views feature prominently in the article vilifying saturated fat, going so far as to claim that smoking played a little role in heart disease. Ironically, it's documented that by 1968, Keys' own 7 country study indicated that the cardiovascular disease was actually associated with and probably caused by smoking, although this competing information was not disclosed to the public until 1980. Well, after that, wow. That's crazy. Wow. 1980. This guy started his research and started at the helm at 1958, and 1980 finally published what he found. Like not published, but like told everyone what he found. That's pretty crazy. It took a long time. Covering up evidence that fat is good for you. Still, the 7 countries study didn't necessarily have to be the final word on the topic. In fact, we know what the hell? We know that word research like the 7 country study and quite weak in terms of proving causality. Rather, experimental studies which can control for confounders provide for much stronger findings, the best quality being what we call randomized control trials. And before the publication of the 7 country study in 1978, a large randomized control trial investigating the effects of reducing saturated fat was underway, known as the Minnesota Coronary Survey. This study involved more than 9,000 participants and was investigating the effect of reducing saturated fat on heart disease. What he was not counting on, however, was that the results of his study, the Minnesota Coronary Survey, did not go to plan. They didn't find saturated fat to be harmful, which perhaps explains why the first results weren't published until 1989, despite the study concluding in 1978. Whoa, my boy, that took 11 years? Okay. It's already suspicious. The finding being that the replacing animals and saturated fats with vegetable oil did not reduce the risk of heart disease, and for reasons that have never been explained, yet which seem rather obvious. Key's name was about absent from the eventual publication despite him being one of the 2 principal co-investigators. How are you the investigator and also like the guy, the corrupted dude? You can't play both roles, man. That's tough. The other principal co-investigator, Ivan France, the lead author of the eventual paper, was interviewed by science journalist Gary Tubes, whatever, before his death. When asked why they delayed the publication of the results by 16 years, he replied, "We were just so disappointed in the way they turned out." Of course, even the 1989 publication somewhat distorted the truth by omission. You see, the 1989 publication provided very limited, almost selective data which precluded a proper analysis, only allowing the conclusion to be drawn that fat, saturated fat, didn't appear to be harmful. Dr. Christopher Ramden is a central figure in the full truth finally coming to light. Following up the earlier investigation by Gary Tubbs, Dr. Ramsden contacted by then deceased Ivan France, the lead author's son, Robert. And Robert, after searching through the basement of his childhood home, uncovered 2 ancient magnetic computer tapes containing almost 60,000 records. After an exhausting process of translation to modern computer language and validation of data, the full results were finally published in 2016 in the prestigious British Medical Journal, some 38 years after the study was completed. Wow, it took 2016 to find out that it was BS. The ultimate conclusion being that while replacing saturated fat with vegetable oil did indeed lower cholesterol levels, it did so at the cost of increased of risk of death. So you lowered your cholesterol, but you increase your risk of death. What? In other words, subjects who consume less saturated fat and more seed oils were more likely to die. It simply wouldn't have been possible for the food pyramid to be released had this data been available in 1978. So they were withholding all this data. People, everyone, just getting obese, getting huge, getting, massive and dying from vegetable oils and stuff just because these guys didn't want to be wrong in the light. Wow, man, these guys are crazy. The ego these guys had, or the pride of not being wrong, is ridiculous. Check out the reduction in fat intake in Australia since the 1970s. Fat in Australia diet gram per day. These are going hella down. Hella down. animal fat, and then total fat. You see, the problem is it doesn't seem to be working. Just like the US, Australia has been almost inexplicable rise in diabetes. Yeah. It's foreshadowing here, guys. This graph of the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Australia in 2020. Bro, look at these numbers. God damn. This is Australia. I'm pretty sure we're worse, right? I'm assuming we're worse. There certainly seems to be a change of heart in some quarters. I'd like to introduce you to two experts who appear to have changed their minds. Professor Janet King, the chair of the 2005 Diet Scientist Dietary Advisor Committee, which developed the 2005 iteration of the U.S. Dietary Guidelines, and Professor Tom Brenner, a member of the 2015 Dietary Guidelines Advisor Committee. What they have in common is that they were both authors on this 2020 review paper, concluding that the government limits on saturated fat are not justified by the science. The paper specifically refers to the fact that dairy, meat, and egg are not associated with an increased risk of heart disease and should not be limited. It also makes the point that saturated fats are an ancient food, no doubt in an attempt to highlight the paradox in blaming them for modern disease. In conclusion, don't blame fat for what sugar did. Enjoy our range of high protein, low carb, and sugar snacks. In conclusion, it's exactly I've been telling a ton of people. Now that I see this, it kind of like it makes it all make sense. Like it makes sense. We start dropping dairy, we start dropping cheeses, and we start dropping, all the fats and saturated fats and proteins in the last 40 years. What do we do to replace that? Sugar. And it shows in those graphs what we need to do. Remember the cereals back then? Eat 3 to 4 cereals a day type of thing. That's not working. All that sugar intake made us die even faster from sugar. And not only that, heart disease is still the leading cause of death. So you see that graph of like people's intake of fat, and yet heart disease is still on the rise. That's crazy. I don't know, man. We literally got debated. Second article is from Green Choice Now. So this is a completely different type of mindset website. So I want to get a little bit of everything, on all these videos, guys. The food pyramid and how money influences USDA dietary guidelines. There's author's name, give him credit for writing all these. I try to include the author's name on everything. Sometimes they don't come up because, I don't want to fill my whole screen up with all kinds of information for you guys. I already do with all the damn, writing. It's because I want to have everything for you guys. So nothing, yes, some of it's opinionated, right? Some of it's opinionated of how I'm consuming this. That way you guys can get a feel of how I'm consuming it. And also I'm trying to show you guys that I'm not just making shit up, you know what I mean? Born in 1984, the USDA's 5 food group, the foundation of the USDA Food Guide Pyramid, first published in 1992 and revamped in 2005. In 2011, the USDA replaced the food pyramid, then known as My Pyramid, with My Plate. I think My Plate one is the good one. You see in a bit. Every 5 years, the USDA releases a new set of dietary guidelines, and for nearly 20 years, the food pyramid was the symbol of these guidelines. Food pyramid versus food industry lobbying. Here we go. This is the lobbying part that the other video didn't get to. I mean, the other article didn't get to. We were taught that healthy food is low in sugar and calories, that we need carbs and grains, calcium from milk, and protein from meat. But the reality of the healthy food is much more complicated than it seems. In 2010, the Supreme Court released a ruling in a landmark case, Citizens United versus FEC. This case dealt with the intersection of the First Amendment of corporate spending, concluding that corporate personhood applies in the context of free speech. For a long time, the U.S. government didn't allow corporations to spend money on political campaigns in an effort to decrease the risk of corruption. However, the Citizens United ruling gave corporations the freedom to contribute money to political campaigns, furthering their agenda. As a result, lobbying efforts by large food and beverage producers and brands keep their interests embedded within the with public food and health policy. Last year, 237 clients lobbied the food industry, releasing 933 reports as the USDA was releasing its 2015 to 2020 dietary guidelines. 255 clients lobbied at the food industry, releasing 1,176 reports. Some of the lobbyists' largest clients come as no surprise and include the likes of PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Monsanto, Nestle, and McDonald's, to name a few. Ooh. When dealing with massive multinational corporations such as these, you can be sure that the large sums of cash are involved. So, how much does the food industry spend lobbying U.S. food policy and regulation? We're going to get to that. But look at these. So, Coca-Cola, man, they're trying. When you read the back of the can, you'll see in the Coke Zero can, you'll see the only thing that I found like really bad in there was high sodium. I mean, not high sodium, but sodium period. But when you look at the potassium, because if you go to Google, what is the potassium and sodium level you need to counterbalance the salt intake, right, from the sodium? It says Google average 1 to 1.3, something like that, per 1.1 to 1.3 potassium compared to sodium. So that's like the conversion rate, to knock out the sodium, so sodium isn't too bad for you and bad for your body, and holds on to water and holds on to water weight, which makes you heavier and makes you more fatter. Well, not fatter, but just overweight. So if you read the back of the can, it has like 2 to 3 times more potassium than sodium. So Coke Zero, like, of course you drink water. Drink water, of course, as much as you can, whenever you can. And if you're gonna eat food and you don't want to drink water like me, I don't want to drink water with my dinner, I always go for a Coke Zero. And I try to limit to one Coke Zero a day, like max. If it's like a celebratory moment, like a carne asada type of thing on the weekend, then I'll go for 2 Coke Zeros, something like that. But that's the only thing I drink. I don't drink no juice, I don't drink nothing, just water and one can of Coke Zero on my dinner. That's it. And it's working pretty well. I'm not holding on to a lot of weight. I've been the exact same weight for about 5 months now. I go up by 5 pounds and drop by 5 pounds. Go up by 5 pounds and drop by 5 pounds. I just need to keep an eye on my body and stuff like that. Back to the subject. USDA's My Plate versus Harvard's Healthy Eating Plate. Besides offering vague and indirect information, the striking difference between the USDA guidelines and other health authorities may also point to industry influence, particularly in the case of dairy. Eek. Oh no, not dairy. Not dairy. Healthy Eating Plate. Here we go. Vegetables, fruits, healthy proteins, and whole grains. These are pretty good. Like, I agree with some of this. I mean, the whole grains is still, for me, that's kind of a lot, but this is pretty good. I just want them to also show the sugar and sodium levels, which doesn't say here. So I suggest lowering your sodium and lowering your sugar intake. Your sugars must be hella down. And if you already, pre-diabetic, I'm sorry for you. So yeah, I like Harvard's. They're pretty good. The oils part are hard to find. The seed oils are really good, but there's also some bad seed oils. Like, those oils you gotta do your own research on, man. Those are tough, because oils are very, very bad for you. Okay, USDA guidelines overlook food sustainability. Furthermore, the USDA completely axed sustainability considerations from the dietary guidelines, despite its own advisory committee recommending food system sustainability be incorporated into the dietary recommendations. Sustainable farming, herding, and manufacturing processes are ones that preserve resources and have minimal impact on the environment. Eating sustainably attained food, such as crops grown without toxic pesticides or pasture-raised cattle, is genuinely better for the planet. The USDA's dietary guidelines signal our health and environment come second to the deep pockets of the small group of profit-driven corporations that control America's industrialized food system. So I don't like that part. how they include they're like kind of like hammering in the environment thing, the environment impact, sustainable. Yes, sustainable food is very important, obviously, and always find environment friendly ways to, for to raise cattle, to raise chickens, to raise pigs, all kinds of stuff like that. Yes, that's important, but also there it's kind of like a necessary evil, and it's a horrible way to start things, because there's always the what ifs, and well, how about this and how about that, stuff like that. I don't have to go with the how aboutism, but the sustainability of human race should go first, and then what we can do is start mitigating our impact on the ozone layer, and so on and so forth. Because yes, crops are, I should do a video on this, but crops kill more animals and insects and just life in general on earth with pesticides and with what is that called, the with like food steroids and stuff like that, that they put in the soils. So crops like, vegetables and fruits, they're tough to get by. Like, we have to find a way where we can do it without soil, which like Elon Musk's brother's trying to do, who is trying to grow crops on like kind of like in stands, in rows, kind of like shelves, like at a store, with no soil and just a water dripper on it. And you could do rows and rows and rows. In 1 acre you can have like 10 times the crops or something like that. They have figures for them. And you don't need sunlight because they run off solar panels that feed, electricity down into them, so you can have underground just tons of crops. To me, that's the best way to go about it. But then you go about the solar panels. Like, solar panels are greener, but to mine the cobalt, you know, there's a ton of slavery, which I did a video on this, watch that video of how much the cobalt mining results into slavery in Africa. So that is pretty crazy too. So, it's tough. It's a crazy battle. I see why people fight in both ways, the environment and sustainable foods and stuff like that, and what we need to cut from the O2. But you also got to put in perspective, not to keep us too much in check, because the industry is already expensive as it is. The more you put it in check, like the environment process, the more it's cutting into the average American's pocket. That's all I'm saying. The food pyramid and America's health epidemic. Why does the food pyramid, the heavy hand that major food and beverage companies have on the USDA's dietary guidelines, is deeply disturbing when you consider the influence they have on America's understanding of what is healthy diet. Despite billions of dollars invested in healthcare and the medical research annually, childhood obesity is on the rise, and prevalence of type 2 diabetes is higher than ever, and heart disease is leading cause of death, killing 647,000 Americans every year. Yeah, you'll see those graphs. Biden put those graphs. It's hard not to wonder how much of our nation's decaying health is a product of the deception fueled by big food and AG spending, and amplified by the US food pyramid. If there's one thing that the US food pyramid teaches us, it's that the truth is in the details, and the details are complicated. Nonetheless, hope for a healthy America is not lost. There are a growing number of unbiased organizations working to simplify nutrition and help the American people make healthy food decisions and choices. Sorry, wrong word. And just like that, guys, is the end of the video. That's pretty crazy. And these are just my closing remarks. After reading and researching the variety of data on this topic, my stance on the benefit of less salt and sugar in your system has been more cemented. Some of the interesting things I've learned through this research is that trans fat is very unhealthy and seed oils are very dangerous for one's health. The jury is still out on exactly what kind of food groups we should have every day, but all I can say is, and speak to your doctor and get a DNA exam, what exact nutrients you are deficient in, to correct them. We are America, and we need to find a solution to our health for our children's sake and future generations after. I feel like this topic doesn't get discussed often enough, and here's my attempt. This this video is gonna be really good. I know it's long. I'm sorry, guys. I really try to keep this short, but there's just so much information and context that I have to put in this video because I can't just be like, oh, it's a scam. It's wrong. It's kind of showing that every 5 years we are putting, effort into making it more trustworthy. The government, the government being try to trust them more because they have lied to us, and also be critical. Be critical thinkers. Do your own research. The government's telling you something, and your doctor's telling you to take this and take that. Especially doctor, listen to your doctor. If you have a bad doctor, just change the doctor. But the DNA exam is 100% something you guys should do, which I want to do soon, but it's expensive. It's like over $1,000 or something like that. It's so expensive. Do that. If you really feel unhealthy, it's worth the money. They'll tell you exactly what nutrients you'll be missing out in your life, and if you correct them, your body would feel like 5-10 times more better. Who knows? Like, some people are so deficient in something like a vitamin D deficiency that their whole body will change immediately once they start correcting that. So yes, get the DNA exam, talk to your doctor is my recommendation, which everyone should be doing. And what I do know for sure, doctor or no doctor, cut your sugar, cut your trans fat, cut your sodium, and you should be good ish. Alright guys, like this video, share this video with your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, help us grow and have a bigger impact. Comment your thoughts down below. And this is your host Jose, hitting escape. Peace.